My name is Heather Korn, and for my final abnormal psychology project, I decided to create a fractured fairy tale. My fairy tale will cover narcissistic personality disorder. This story is called Happily Never After and is loosely based on characters from Beauty and the Beast. Think of it as a backstory to our favorite villain Gaston, although he would argue that he was in fact the hero. I hope you enjoy. Happily Never After. Once upon a time, in a small, quaint French town, there was a sweet, chubby little boy named Gaston. He was the youngest of 5 children in the Legume household. Gaston's mother's attention was spread thin. Between all the household duties and the children, there was not much attention left for poor little Gaston. His father was often working, and when he was home, he was cold and uncaring toward the children. Kids around town often teased him about his weight and tattered clothing, as did his siblings. Gaston grew up feeling rejected and unworthy of love. He never learned how to form a connected, deep relationship with others in childhood, which created an inability to establish meaningful connections as an adult. Featured on the Apple podcast Recognizing a Narcissist, published in 2016, Dr. Romani talks about the 4 pillars of narcissism. One of the pillars is a lack of empathy, another is grandiosity, yet another pillar is a sense of entitlement, and the final pillar is a pursuit of admiration and validation from others. As Gaston grew into a man, he started dedicating time working out and muscle building, earning a reputation for having exceptional strength. He had a striking appearance and was especially handsome. This garnered him much attention, which he relished. Gaston was very charismatic and most of the townspeople loved him. He was a successful local tavern owner and a professional hunter. All the townsmen wanted to be him, and all the women were mesmerized by him, or so he would say. One woman in particular had caught his eye. Her name was Belle, and she was intelligent, beautiful, and talented. Belle was diligently pursuing her goals of finishing college and could always be found with her nose in a book. The recent years had proven challenging for her, as she grappled with the loss of her mother after a lengthy battle with cancer. Belle never seemed to notice Gaston, which really irked him. After all, Gaston was successful, good-looking, and had super strength. What more could Belle be interested in, he thought. In his mind, he was the total package. There was no one else who could even compete with his looks, power, or hunting abilities. Every other woman fawned all over him except Belle, and that made him feel incredibly insecure. According to the DSM-5-TR, published in 2022, having low self-esteem with feelings of inferiority, envy, shame, and insecurity can manifest into narcissistic personality disorder, otherwise referred to as NPD. The DSM-5-TR, published in 2022, explains that individuals with NPD tend to lack empathy and awareness of others' needs, wants, and experiences. Our textbook, Fundamentals of Abnormal Psychology, published in 2022, explains that individuals with narcissistic personality disorder construct an exaggerated self-perception, longing for acknowledgement of their superiority, frequently displaying arrogance. They have a need to feel extraordinary and demand persistent recognition for their perceived achievements, authority, and attractiveness, as outlined in our textbook. Gaston was determined to win Belle over. He disapproved of her recreation of learning and reading, considering it to be a waste of time. Convinced that he could charm her into love, he conspired to transform her into the ideal wife he desired. So the manipulation began. Gaston showered Belle with compliments and lavish gifts, such as beautiful flower arrangements. He continued with extravagant gestures, professing his undying love for her, but she would not be swayed by his superficial charm. According to Dr. Ramani's video titled What is Love Bombing, which premiered in 2020, love bombing is a tactic used by narcissists for personal gain, validation, or control. The intention is to overwhelm a person with affection, gifts, and compliments to win them over or to make it easier to manipulate them. Belle rebuffed Gaston's advances, which triggered his deep-seated internal feelings of inadequacy. He started to feel rejected all over again and was furious that he was not getting what he wanted. As the DSM-5-TR 2022 points out, individuals with NPD are fragile and have a sense of entitlement. This explains why Gaston could not conceive that Belle was not romantically interested in him. He had fashioned an idolized image of himself in his mind, unable to grasp that it was different from reality. In truth, Belle utterly despised Gaston. She thought he was pompous, arrogant, and rude. Following her mother's passing, he neglected to offer her any condolences. Instead, at her mother's funeral, he incessantly bragged about winning first place in the local hunting competition. His obliviousness to her emotions and lack of consideration for others was the final nail in the coffin, if you will. Belle firmly informed Gaston that she would never, under any circumstance, consider dating him. His ego was bruised. He boasted to anyone willing to listen that he had dismissed Belle's advances, asserting that she lacked the qualities of a suitable housewife. Belle's refusal to date Gaston deeply wounded him. He felt inadequate. Although he still held anger towards Belle, Gaston was determined to move forward and began pursuing another woman who he appeared significantly more infatuated with him. Belle was finally free of his advances and could now move on with her life. Gaston's friends tried recommending that he see a therapist for his anger towards Belle, but he dismissed the idea. He was convinced that she was the issue, not him. Treatment options for narcissistic personality disorder are difficult due to the individual's inability to acknowledge their own weaknesses, take in others' feedback, or see how their own behavior is hurting others, according to Fundamentals in Abnormal Psychology published in 2022. The book mentions that if someone with NPD is willing to go to therapy, a cognitive behavioral therapist might try to expand a person's ability to emphasize with others, redirecting the patient to focus on others instead of self centered thinking, and instruct patients to interpret criticism more sensibly.